This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. Chris Zerzavy, welcome to the studio. How are you, man?
Doing good, man. It's good to be here.
Okay, so the audience, because when we do these sit-downs, these in-person sit-downs, we don't do like my normal intro, outro. So you and I have known each other since, what it had to have been like 7th grade?
Yes,
right?
Middle school.
Okay.
Junior high is what it's called then.
Yeah, who calls it middle school
I don't
now?
know.
I don't
They've
understand.
moved it that way in cash.
Well, no, it's also when we were in junior high, it was, what was it? It was 7th through 9th.
7th through 9th.
And then they changed it to where it's like 6th through 8, and then 9 through 10 is high school. Is that how it still is?
That is. That's how it is at cash, yeah.
So Eisenhower Junior High School. Go Vikings.
Go Vikings.
Okay? That was
Valhalla.
us. And then, so the thing is like you can have a bunch of friends like in elementary school and middle school and all that, but then when you start like diverging, like some kids kind of go the pre-AP school route, and some people, kind of just do the regular class thing. So we had a ton of classes together because once we got to Lawton Eisenhower High School, that we didn't have like, we had a lot of AP classes, but there wasn't like 15 different AP calculus that you could be in. There was like one,
right.
And it was like that was the hour that you had to do it. So yeah, we've known each other for like way too long.
Our schedules were basically the same.
Yeah, for a long time.
It was.
And so you're in, are you in Cache or Elgin now?
I'm in Cache now.
You're in Cache. Okay, so that's a suburb of the great big city of Lawton, Oklahoma.
Huge.
Where we're from now. Are you from Lawton originally?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, born and raised in Lawton.
Which elementary school did you go to?
Almore West. Well, first I went to Pioneer Park, then Almore West.
Okay, so it would have been whatever the school was before it was Pat Henry.
Okay.
So whatever it was called, it was Lincoln, maybe Lincoln
I think it was
Elementary, and then it
Lincoln.
became Pat Henry. I think it was after it burned down, it became Pat Henry?
Yes.
Or whatever, like a kid burned it down. Literally, a kid burned it down. And
Sounds like Lawton.
Yeah, and then I went to Crosby Park.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's like the most Lawton story ever. Like, hey,
Kid
what
burned
school did
down
you go
the
to?
school.
Well, I can't remember if it was before the kid burned it down or not. Yeah, as far as I know, nobody was inside at that time. But literally, like, we basically kind of grew up together at school. And so, because we were always in the same classes and different things like that. But when I was getting ready for this, because we're covering a lot of ground today, I don't know if you remember this, but you and I would go play like pickup sports randomly.
Absolutely.
And so I thought I was a really good racquetball player, but you played tennis.
I was a tennis
player. So I was a baseball player, so I have hand-eye coordination and I can swing, but you played tennis. And you took me to like Reinhardt or somewhere out on Fort Sill, and you destroyed me in racquetball. Do you remember this?
I do remember that. I
was completely, I don't even remember getting mad. And at the time that would have been very up my alley, but it was like, I don't even remember being mad because it wasn't even close. It wasn't like I was barely there. I was not even in your same vicinity.
No, that hand-eye coordination of tennis and court awareness and racquetball translates really well. So yeah, that was something that I was pretty good at. And I do remember enjoying that time very much because you were always great at everything. So it's good to be able to take you out there.
And you would just smile. You would just like, because I mean, for anyone, I haven't played racquetball in forever, but you would hit the ball like an inch off the ground.
Yeah.
And I would be, because I'm a hustle guy, right? So I'm like, I'm just hustling and running. And so I'm diving all over the place and to no avail. Or I would make this incredible return shot, but you're just perfectly in position. You would just right over
Be
into
where I
the
was
wall.
supposed to be. Yeah.
It's so stupid, but you did teach me how you can like hit it off the top of the wall to where it skips off the roof and then sends it back all the way, and then the guy ends up having to run.
Hey, you did remember.
See?
That's awesome.
Now, because I haven't played in like over 10 years, but I do remember that, just destroying people because you just assume the ball's going to end up right next to you. So I don't think I did a good job describing it. So guys, if you play racquetball, you hit it off of the, the main wall towards the top at an upward angle, and then it'll skip off of the roof and then skip off the glass at the very back.
And die.
But it's coming off so fast once it comes off the glass, like it basically is like taking off towards the wall, and it's probably going to bounce twice before you get there.
Yeah, it's great. Perfect move for defense.
It wasn't any fun. It was not any fun playing with you. I would play with some of my
Do
other
you play any
friends.
pickleball?
I've never played pickleball.
It's fun. It's
It's
another
not that
good
I
one.
won't. It's just that I haven't.
Yeah, it's a good one, but it'll be addictive.
Okay,
So, I know
now
your
we'll-
personality.
Yeah, see, that's part of the problem. It's because I literally just got a compound bow,
I saw that.
which now I got to tell you, I'm not big on modularity.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'll never own a Jeep. That's why, like, when people get ARs and they're like, hey, did you change out your da-da-da? No.
Built it like I
want
wanted
to get it built the way that I want it and then just leave it. Talking to people about bow hunting, I'm just like, I don't know if I want to bow hunt because like just asking normal people what kind of release they use, and then they get into like a 2-hour long description of how they like came to find the perfect release for their body and everything. I'm like, rifle hunting, I just get it in the crosshairs, make sure my rifle's sighted in and go
Pull
bang.
that trigger.
But you've been compound hunting for a while?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
As I had some land, I would take the boys out there and we'd go compound hunting. I enjoyed it. I haven't done it in quite some time now. We've moved off of that land, so I don't have a place to go. But I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll like it a lot. There's a lot of sportsmanship to it.
Yeah.
And it's going to bite you.
See, I don't. Everyone said the same thing.
Yeah.
You're going to get bit by it. It's going to just like consume you. But I just can't have another thing to like go through the belt system on, because it's like I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So it's like you're almost to, the rarefied air of black belt, but then even at black belt, you got dudes that have been training for 20 years as a black belt and you're just getting your black belt. And so I just can't have another thing. Like when I hear like Joe Rogan and Cam Hanes talk about bow hunting, I'm just like, I can't be into it at that level.
Yeah.
Like I got to be proficient. I got to be able to make good, clean shots on animals so they die quickly. But like, I just can't.
Looks like you've done some fun hunts though.
Yeah. I've had it's just really good friends, people that have found the show and then they're like, hey, my family got some land over here, or hey, I've got an extra tag, over in this state to do whatever.
That's
and
awesome.
So and by the way, guys, keep them coming. Keep the offers coming. If you want me to come hunt on your land and kill your animals, like I'm absolutely here. But I guess part of the thing too is, you didn't grow up hunting?
I did not.
Okay.
No, this was adulthood.
Yeah. So both of us are kind of trying to figure it out as adults, but I don't care about racks.
No.
Like, I can't eat antlers. Mm-mm. I can't eat horns. And so, like, I will kill the biggest bodied animal regardless of what their head looks like. Now, It's cool. Like, I've got a gorgeous red stag downstairs. Like, I've got some oryx right up here in the studio. I've got, some good whitetail. But, man, like, I just don't care. Like, I care about meat in the freezer.
That was my same approach.
Okay.
Yeah. It was cool if I got something cool, but if a doe came out, I didn't have a problem taking a shot at that. It was going to put meat in the freezer.
Well, and you have these guys that wait all season for that one buck to come out to show itself, and they're hunting and they're watching I got one of my best friends. He basically was like, there was a particular animal on his land. It was called Goliath. Like they had nicknamed it Goliath.
Seen it for years, probably.
Yeah, oh man. And for years he's watching this thing. It finally became a shooter, but season after season, he's trying to take this thing out. And it was just one of those things where he would be at this stand and it was at the other stand.
Right.
And the next day he'd go to that stand and it'd be at the previous
there.
And he'd try to like find him. And then at one point he goes to a taxidermist nearby and he sees Goliath in there. And because he just knew it. He'd seen this, he'd spent so much time with this animal and like he's at work checking his cameras, right? Yeah. And seeing where Goliath is moving. And he even said, he's like, I'm never going to do that with another animal. Because basically what happened is the guy on the property right next door to him put off like an estrus bomb. Like it's literally like a piss bomb. And then Goliath literally stands up, hops the fence, walks into this guy's field, and this old farmer shoots him. Guy hadn't been hunting this particular deer. He just sees like, oh, well, there's a shooter buck, and just takes him out.
Oh, man, that's the worst.
Well, I guess like for you, since you and I kind of had very similar upbringing, so, a lot of academics, a lot of sports, pretty much no outdoors, like no hunting, fishing, like camping, any of that kind of stuff. I guess for you, why was it like important, like as an adult? Because I mean, you make some dumb mistakes as an adult when you're first getting into hunting, and like I've certainly made some bad mistakes, and you feel terrible because it's like I wish I had made this mistake when I was 7,
instead
not
of
37.
Now. Right.
But like, so for you, what was kind of the motivation behind it?
I think the group I was hanging out with, hunters, outdoorsmen, knowing that I had boys that I was raising, I wanted to expose them to those things as well. And so just getting that group together, going out there, getting some land and having an opportunity to do the things that I enjoyed but wasn't exposed to. But I can relate to you, man. I didn't want to ask those stupid questions like, I feel like I should know this, but I don't. Yeah. And so I had a group of buddies that I could ask those things and I didn't feel bad about doing it.
Well, that's kind of the key, because whether it's jiu-jitsu or hunting or whatever the thing is, like you feel like you should know how to do it. But in the Ways to Avoid Being a Crappy Man series, one of my things is don't pretend to know something that you don't.
Don't.
And so like, I'll be out hunting with guys that are experienced hunters and guys that I respect and, want them to respect and look at me in a certain light. And they'll say, hey, they'll ask me a hunting related question, be like, I have no idea what you just said. Can you teach me?
Yeah.
Like, or when they're asking me to do a certain thing. And even recently we killed an oryx, or I killed an oryx. And it was so big, the three of us could not lift this thing in the back of a Can-Am, so we kind of have to gut it right there. And at this point, I've gutted plenty of whitetail, right? But an oryx is from a kind of a different family. It's not a part of the deer family. And so the stuff, I've never gotten an intact heart before because I usually shoot the deer completely through the heart and it's in pieces or whatever. And, I was having some trouble getting the guts out. And so the two hunters that I was with, Heath and Joby and I talked about this on the Skunks and Crosses episode earlier this year. But, and my knives, I thought I had sharpened them up pretty good, but the knives I brought out were a little bit too dull, because to get through an oryx's like skin, like the skin on their back was like an inch thick or whatever. So to get through the hide was something different. And it's like, I got frustrated and I got kind of like, flustered during the process, but it's like, hey, just calm down. These guys are educated hunters. Like, you're having some trouble. And I mean, I'm elbow deep inside, like trying to cut certain things away, and, the knife's not really working out. But I was just like, hey, I think I might be doing something wrong. Like, if y'all see me doing something wrong, you just have to have the humility to be like, hello, other adult male.
Absolutely.
Like, tell me what to do now.
And they're happy to help you, especially in that hunting community. Hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you come take a look, make sure I'm not messing this up? And they are. They're happy to come over day or night, show you, help you, get their hands dirty, and make sure everything's squared away. It's a pretty cool community.
When I feel like you say community, I feel like it's even more so that in the bow hunting community, because people are such nerds about bow hunting, because like you ask them a question about their release, they're like, this is the only context with where I can like talk about this, because like if you just start talking about that in the middle of a board meeting, it's like, it's going to be a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But as we were talking as well, I don't know if you remember this would have been probably our senior year at Eisenhower.
Mm-hmm.
So we go up to the football field, and it was me and you, and I remember it was our buddy Jeff and Craig.
Okay.
I don't want to say their last names because I don't know if they've disowned me because I have a podcast and say things on it. But there were like 4 other guys, and we were playing 3-on-3 football. But again, you have one quarterback that basically can't rush in 3-on-3. And then, but the problem is we kept mixing up the teams, is that if you and I were on the same team, like it just wasn't
dominate.
Right. So like I would just go routes, and you would just throw the ball up, and I would just go get it, and they just couldn't cover us. So at one point, as a joke, we say, okay, me and Chris versus all 4 of y'all. Do you remember this?
I do remember this now. Okay. I didn't before when you started the story, but I do.
Okay, so what do you remember of the story? Because I remember it actually pretty well.
So I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember us beating all 4 of them.
We didn't just beat them.
Pretty badly.
Beat the brakes off of them. And so, because at one point, I remember this, because it's you and me on offense, none of them could cover either one of us.
No, we just fly.
Yeah, we would just go, and as soon if we caught the ball, we were basically going to score. The problem was on defense.
Yeah.
At one point, they do like a double I formation. So they've got quarterback, fullback, running back. And they're running basically the triple option or quadruple option.
They got numbers on their side.
And we're sitting there like each of us trying to cover 2 different dudes, and we're trying to watch the ball and whatever. But, it was kind of one of those things where it's like if you got 1 pick or 1 fumble or 1 sack, because we were playing tackle.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure neither one of us were on the ground at all.
No, I don't think
that day. But that was, dude, I've thought about that so many times about how ridiculous that was. And they were good sports about it, because like they knew like kind of the different level of athlete or whatever, but they were pretty shocked too that when it was 4-2 in tackle football, that like we basically just scored at will. It was actually pretty hilarious.
I had forgotten about that. That's awesome that you brought that up. That's too cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So I guess like, we both graduate. Did you end up going to Cameron?
I did.
Okay, so Cameron is the university there, Division II university there in our hometown. I went to UCO. And so like that first year I would come back like all the time to Lawton, and you just kind of saw who you saw. Like, you'd see certain family and see certain friends and stuff like that, and I would come back to the church. But then probably by my sophomore year, I kind of
have your life there.
Yeah, Edmond's my new home, and then I was basically coming back to Lawton for like Thanksgiving and Christmas. But like for you, you've worked and lived in and around your hometown for forever. And I've talked about Lawton quite a bit on our show. Like, it can be a rougher city. It's a city that if you don't have your head on a swivel and you're not paying attention, you could end up in the wrong neighborhood, and it can be problematic for you. But for the most part, like when we were in high school, the gangs were kind of funny, but there was that big brawl at the 7-Eleven across from, where the Lawton High guys came over, and there was that big like gang fight there across. And I felt like that was the moment where the gangs got like pretty serious, where it was like they started shooting each other, and they started not just getting in fights, but like killing each other, running drugs, running girls. And so I feel like we graduated at the right time, but you kind of stuck around. So like for me, almost voyeuristically, like what was Lawton like? How did you view Lawton as you were just kind of still in and around that area, even since 2004 when we graduated?
Yeah, I think it changed. I think you're in the school segment, and you see things one way. You get into Cameron, and it's like a whole nother world. So just like you went to UCO, like I feel like I left that life of high school. Even being in Lawton, the folks that I hung out in high school, I didn't really hang out in college. And so you get into that, and then you get into your professional world, and you see Lawton and the outreach and the things that you're supposed to do to be a good civic human. And I started getting into those things. And I do see Lawton improving. I think there are a lot of efforts, a lot of different things that are being done to make it a better area. I think there's still challenges in the schools. I think we'll always have that just because it's a lower income part of the state. Yeah. But I do think that progress is being made, and I think it'll continue to be made as we move forward. Fort Sill has a huge impact on that, I believe, as well.
Yeah, that was always kind of the thing, because people will say Lawton, but it's Lawton, Fort Sill. Yeah. So Fort Sill, is it still the largest artillery base?
It is.
In the country. So largest Army artillery base in the country. So a very transient population. So yes. Lawton is basically two things. It's Fort Sill and it's Goodyear.
Yeah.
Okay. So my dad worked 40 plus years at Goodyear, retired from there. So that's the biggest Goodyear plant, I think, in the entire Goodyear company. And so if either one of those things, because at different points, people have talked about the Goodyear plant shutting down.
Yes.
People have talked about Fort Sill shutting down. And like what that would do to Lawton, because so much money comes because of not only being paid by either Fort Sill, being paid by the U.S. government, or being paid by Goodyear, but rental property, rental homes, like the schools, because when we were there, Lawton Ike was 6A, Lawton High was 6A, MacArthur on the east side was 5A. But now Lawton High is the only 6A. MacArthur is still 5A, right?
Eisenhower's still 5. Is
Eisenhower's
MacArthur
5 now.
5?
They're either 5 or they've gone down to 4.
4A.
Because Lawton is kind of precipitously, slowly kind of losing population.
Yeah.
And the population of the greater Oklahoma City area, which includes Edmond, Mustang, Moore, Yukon, I guess you could go all the way Guthrie, Norman.
Yeah.
Like that continues to expand.
Right.
And people are kind of leaving that area. But
I think Elgin and Cache are growing, so they're spreading out.
Those are on
out
either
further.
side of Lawton. Yeah. And so that, because I remember like Cache was basically the edge of the planet.
Yeah.
Whenever we were growing up, and I would go out there to see some buddies. But yeah, I mean, Cache now, it's probably unrecognizable.
It is. The campus for the school is awesome. It's huge. Yeah. You'll have to come down there. I'll have to host you down at my place.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I'll definitely come down, excuse to go see the family, and then pop on out to Cache, drive 15 minutes. I would always go to the Hop and Sack. We'd go to the Hop and Sack and get pizza. So I don't know if the Hop and Sack is still there.
It's still there. It changed names, but it's still there.
I don't know if I would get the pizza now.
It's called Max now.
Okay. How is it?
It's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have any like financial relationship with Max or whatever? Yeah. Because, I mean, we were talking about, I was talking with a buddy at lunch, like, bro, I used to just eat candy after every meal. And I like my metabolism is still pretty much the same, but it's like that feeling of like, okay, I just ate an entire large pizza and I'm washing it down with gummy worms and knee-high soda.
I think that's just a kid thing. My boys try to do that too. And they have the metabolism to support it. I couldn't do it now. I bet you could. You still got that fast-paced go, go, go. Yeah,
I will say now, kind of like, because most of my diet is meat, so shout out Primal Beef, or, it's wild game or something like that. And I mean, for lunch, I'll have a pound of ground beef as the start of my lunch. But then I'll also have cheese, and then I'll have a banana, and I'll have some peanut butter, and I may have some yogurt. And I'm just like...
Lots of protein.
Yeah, I'm trying to get 180 to 200 grams of protein in a day.
Yeah.
And so if you eat a bunch of Doritos or pizza or bagels or whatever, like you won't even get to 100.
No.
And so that's part of the deal that kind of keeps me honest at this point. Like, if it's Halloween or if it's Christmas or if you're having me over your house and your lovely bride makes a nice dessert, like, oh, of course.
Yeah,
of course I'm going to partake. But my problem was when I would partake with every meal.
Yeah.
Like every meal had dessert.
Yeah, it's easy to get into that habit too. So easy.
So growing up for you, like, what was that like being at home? Because like we hydrated with Shasta.
Yeah.
There was no water consumed in our house. And it was always like sugary cereal that we poured more sugar on top of.
Same.
Like we had fast food every night.
Same, exactly the same. Mom worked, so that's what we would do. We would eat out. Sodas would be on the counter. You'd pour you out of the 3-liter and just drink soda all the time.
Yeah, the 3-liter. And you knew the family was soda crazy when they would put the 3-liter in the fridge. So it wouldn't be fizzy, but it'd be ice cold.
It'd be cold when
you
drank
put it in your glass. And it's just like, how in the world? Because like, dude, when I go to my dad's house, like over there down the street from Jeff,
yes,
I would get a case of Shasta on Friday night. And that's what I drank until I went home on Sunday. And I would drink through half, 3/4 of a case of soda.
Without thinking about it.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, untold amounts of sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hundreds and hundreds of grams of sugar per day.
So much.
Yeah. And now, so like, we got these Jocko energy drinks. And I love them. And I think, what are these? Yeah. Because what does that have any, the hydrate? How much does that have in it? Does that have any sugar in it?
Nope. 0 grams.
Yeah. So yeah, and the energy drink has 0 grams too.
Yeah.
And then you get into other stuff, and it's like, okay, does it have sucralose or does it have like some other, type of sweetener? And like, dude, now I've got this app called Yucca that I will scan food in the store before I buy it because it'll tell you what additives are in there, if any of them are high risk.
Wow.
Like, because I don't really care about sodium content and protein. Some would be like, this is too calorically dense. I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
But like, you've just eaten certain foods for forever, and you're like, oh, this has like 7 things in it that could give me cancer.
That I don't need to have.
Hey, what is wrong with this?
No.
But
just get accustomed to them, the convenience.
Yeah. So graduated from high school, you go to Cameron. Did you look at any other schools, or was it basically Cameron?
So no, I did. I applied at other schools. Much like you got the President's Scholarship at UCO, I got the Plus Scholarship at Cameron. Right. So compared what was offered to me by the universities in state, and Cameron was the way to go. It was a full ride there. Took into account the different things that were important to me, like leadership and the opportunities there. And then I got a job at a bank in Lawton. And so that made the choice pretty easy.
Yeah, because those were the only 2 schools I applied to, were Cameron and UCO. And so, because about 1,000 kids a year or more apply for the President's Leadership Council Scholarship to UCO, and only about 25 get it from the entire state. And so, like, I was looking at that like, this is my only ticket to somewhere else. Like, I wasn't like dying to get out of Lawton.
No.
But it was like my only ticket to do or try anything else. And bro, I remember getting to the interview, and I was in my Johnny Cash face, right? Similar now. I was just wearing all black, right? Yeah. So black shirt, black pants, black tie. And we get in there, and I swear, because I'm a ginger, I can feel when I'm blushing.
Turned red.
Brother, like, I was sweating, like I could feel myself getting flushed. And I left that interview thinking, I just bombed this. Like, bombed it big time. I mean, the quietest drive home, driving back to Lawton.
Yeah.
Right. And then, but I remember getting the letter in the mail from UCO, and I opened it in the car with my dad. Like, he was the first person to know. Yeah. I got the letter, and first person let him know, because that's basically a full ride scholarship to go to,
Great
a school.
University.
Yeah. 3rd biggest university here. And, that's where I met my wife. That's where, I still live in town. I live, 10 minutes from the campus. And, it's just kind of weird to look back and look at that time period and think about how different life could have been. Because at different points, I'm like, should I join the Army? Maybe try to be in a Green Beret? Like, because I kind of lived that Spartan lifestyle a little bit. Like, hey, could I have done that? Could I have made it? You always kind of wonder. But so, like, for you, when you got to Cameron, like, take us, how did you figure out what you wanted to major in? Like, how did that kind of like, because you're working at a bank, so it's like, yeah, you could do basic business, you can do finance, whatever. But like, what'd you end up doing?
So mine's business management. Yep. And I guess, so the struggles for me that I thought about, because I would look at folks like you and I was like, well, did I miss it? Should I have gone somewhere else and lived the college life? Because Cameron is a commuter type college.
Yeah.
They're trying to convert it. It's getting better. It's getting bigger.
It's expensive to make a commuter college a live here, stay here thing.
And it is Lawton, Oklahoma. So you have to factor that in. But no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the time. I felt like I got a good education locally. I felt like the experience of Plus made it more like a big university, because you did a lot of things on campus. You did community service. You stuck with these folks, kind of like our AP folks in high school. Yep. So I did enjoy that time. I went in thinking I was going to go into pharmacy school, so I started a lot on the chemistry side. Enjoyed my business classes. Like you said, I was at the bank, and I was like, hey, I think I could do this for a career.
Yeah.
And so kind of switched over to that. While I was at the bank, I was doing an internship with the bank, and then that led to an internship at Fort Sill. And so I've been there for the last 18 years, started my civil service career right after the internship, and have been out there doing that since that time with the Department of the Army.
Yeah, my mom retired civil service, and so, it's weird. My dad worked 40 plus years for the same company. My mom worked civil service basically her entire career, and so it's like, that's what I thought, go to college. I started picking up golf because I was like, oh, you can't be good in business unless you golf. And just, even though I hated it, but it took me years to realize I didn't have to do that in order to be successful. And, the decisions you make, basically all that stopped when we had James, our first kid.
Yeah.
Because I always would go back like, okay, what if I had stayed in Lawton? Okay, what if I had joined the Army, not gone to college? Okay, what if I had tried to go to, West Point or the Naval Academy or something like that? So like one of our good buddies, Andre, so he went the Naval Academy route. He got offered by all of the academies, went to Naval Academy, ended up becoming a Blue Angel. Now he's like, teaching pilots all over the world. And you kind of think, and then the GWAT, Global War on Terror, was like super hot, right? When we were in school, but then also right afterwards, like, I remember talking to my dad about that, because I was like, this was before we had James. I was like, yeah, I just regret not serving the country and, not being in the military. And like, cause I feel like I would have been, more on the spec ops side of things, like, maybe SF, maybe SEAL, maybe Marine Recon, like who knows. And my dad just kind of in his own, folksy wisdom kind of way. And he's like, yeah, and you could be dead, son.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. And so it just kind of put into the perspective that God has a plan for all of us, right? But we still have free will to make the decisions. But he can kind of direct our steps and kind of move us and mold us in a certain direction. And it's like, I think I was just busy running someone else's race in my head.
Yeah.
Because I'm reading all these memoirs about war and I'm reading about the brotherhood and the things that these guys were in. And it's just kind of like, but that wasn't my race. No. Like that was someone else's race. Yeah. Like while they were in some, foxhole in Mogadishu or, somewhere in Iraq or Afghanistan or somewhere like that, like I was in class.
Yeah.
Right. And I was furthering my education and all that. And then, fast forward to kind of where I'm at now with the show, it's like, well, maybe this doesn't happen, and the impact that Undaunted.Life has had on men and on the kingdom, like that probably doesn't happen.
Yeah,
even if it did, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, you had to have time for that to unfold and see what God had in store for you. You had to be obedient to the path that was before you. And I think it's natural for all of us to have those thoughts of, what if I'd have gone this way? What if I'd have done this? But I think God reveals what his plan is in the right time. And so one step to the left and you could have been doing something totally different for your life. If I'd have gone to UCO, who knows if I'd be sitting here. Same for you. You don't know where we would be. And so it's definitely good for perspective, for thoughts of, hey, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is why. And we don't always have to understand while we're walking that path, but it's good to know that God's got our back. And I've learned that a lot more in the recent years.
Right. Well, and I'm also curious, like, and we don't have to use any particular names, but like looking back on our class, like the people that we graduated with, and of course there's the wisdom of parents, like where you care so much about what certain people think about you.
Yeah.
And then these are the same people that you'll try to avoid seeing, like running into them in public. You know what I mean? Like it's that same person. If you're walking through the mall in Lawton and you see me like zip, you dive into Dillard's real quick, so you don't have to have that awkward small talk conversation. But like, is there anything that kind of sticks out to you about like anyone that? Because there's one person that comes to mind that we graduated with that eventually I want to have him on the show to talk about it. But anyone that kind of sticks out, or any stories about like, okay, like who someone was and how they were like in high school versus maybe what we know about them now, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of cool stories of folks that I've been able to keep up with. Social media makes that pretty neat. Yeah. Definitely would like to talk to some of our teachers, specific ones that I know invested in both of us and our futures. I'd love to catch up with them.
Who's your favorite? What's kind of your short list? Because I basically have a list of one.
I think the Bears are at the top of my list.
So Mrs. Bear, she taught AP English, and Mr. Bear taught AP Calculus.
Yeah, and both of them were wonderful. Of course, I went yearbook route. Miss Fortney was wonderful. I still talk to her some.
That's right. We were both in yearbook together senior year. That's right.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
No, I think those are wonderful ones. And then I do run into some, being down there in the community. A couple of them I've run into recently through Cash, through kids and grandkids. And so it's nice when you see them, when you get to touch bases with them. It makes you realize how fast time is going when you see folks that are remembered this way in your mind. And age gets us all. I'm sure I look way different than they had remembered me. So it's just, it's cool. It's cool to talk to them now that I'm an adult and have some perspective on life, and they show up for important things. And so getting in touch with folks, even my kindergarten teacher came and saw at the book signing. So just a cool dynamic of seeing folks that you hadn't seen in a long time.
Yeah. I'll say the teacher, the one that had left the most indelible impact on me was Mr. Adair.
Yes.
So 9th grade English teacher. So he and I did not meet. So I was always at a deficit anytime I went into a class, because my sister was 1 year older than me. She was very quiet, very subdued, never said anything, never ruffled any feathers, sat in the front row, straight A student, right? So they see another Thompson on their roster, and they...
Preconceived notions.
Oh, shoot, yeah. And then I come busting in the classroom, and I'm trying to make everyone laugh. I'm sweaty. Like, it's just, I'm just like going nuts, right? And they're just like, what in God's name do we have here? But Chris Wood and I are in the hallway of Eisenhower Junior High, right? Our next hour is Mr. Adair, okay? But we didn't know who Mr. Adair was. Like, we didn't know whatever. And so Chris and I are just getting after each other. And, like, we're like fake fighting in the hallway, like punching each other and all that kind of stuff. And guess who comes and breaks it up?
Oh, Mr. Adair.
Mr. Adair.
Yeah.
And so he knows that were in that class. Or I guess he didn't really know, but he breaks it up. And then like, it's 30 seconds before the bell. And so we walk into class, whatever number, and it's his. And we were both like,
oh gosh,
there's no way.
Yeah.
There's simply no way that this is how we met our teacher. But that was it.
Yeah.
That's how we met John Adair.
Yeah.
The first thing he had to say was basically, stop being knuckle dragging morons.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Yeah. But two things that I loved about him, because he was a great teacher, right? Yeah. He kind of brought some of these stories to light. I was not a great reader, still not a great reader, even though I read a lot. But I kind of had we would do these book studies, right? And we would have 100 question tests.
Yes.
Right? And a 90 to 100 was an A.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can only miss, 10 and keep an A.
Yeah.
In like 2 tests in a row, I got an 89, right? And I mean, you and Wood and like Hergenruther and like all you super brainiac kids, you're all sitting there with your 95s, your 96s, and I got in my 89. And I'm just like, because I got grounded if I got Bs, right? Like if I,
expectation
it was
A.
A's or nothing except in AP chemistry, because my parents know I'm like sort of half retarded. But like, with the English class, like no, you come home with A's. And so the third time, there was like the third big test, and I am super nervous. I get an 89 again. So when Mr. Adair came up to give me my Scantron, he goes, son, after I got the Scantron out, I went back and I hand graded it. Yeah. And I just made double sure that the answers were the bubbles that you put and that the blah, blah, you really did get an 89. Yeah. And I was just but the fact that he took his time, because he kind of knew, like he knows what's happening in the room. Yeah. He knows people are giving me crap for getting a B. But that's a little story. I don't know if you remember our 9th grade baseball team. That was with Tyler Hill and Kyle Thorne and all that. So we went undefeated. We were amazing.
Studs, yeah.
And my parents were separated at that point, and so if my mom was at the game, my dad would basically be in the truck in the outfield. Yeah. But there was a particular game where my mom wasn't there, so my dad's sitting in the bleachers. Well, guess who comes to watch our game?
Mr. Adair.
But Mr. Adair. And he sits next to my dad, and they strike up a conversation with one another. And I remember that game because I went like 3 for 4 with a home run and like 7 RBIs, and like I had a game, right? And he just sat there. He sat there with my dad for the entire game, and just talked to my dad, about baseball, me, who knows? Yeah. But he sat there and he didn't make a big deal about it. He didn't wait for me after the game and say, "Proud of you, son," or
came to watch you.
He just came to watch, and I knew he was there. And my dad talked about it later, and that for whatever reason that always stood out to me, because it's like he has other things to do, than to come out to a 4:00 game. Right, to watch us beat, Duncan or, Altus or somebody like that, just beat the brakes off some random team. But he had several students that were on the ball club, and he
cared.
And he cared as well.
Yeah, he invested in folks. Yeah, he would be cool to have on because he's got that DJ MC voice, anyways.
So
he would be really cool.
So
on here.
Freaking jealous. What was the rumor that he didn't blink? Was that the rumor?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
I think he has something like crossed up with his retina, so he only blinks whenever
Not
he thinks
very
about
often.
it.
Yeah,
I
I think he's gonna make himself.
We would just be staring at the whole class.
Yeah, talk about it. Yeah,
and he would never actually do it. But the other person that came to mind, who I would love to get on at some point, is Jeff Elbert.
Yes.
So Jeff, I remember, 7th, 8th grade, wearing Goldberg and Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirts, really into wrestling.
Yeah.
But then he kind of went down, he sort of got mixed up with some dudes, and he went down the gangbanging pathway.
Got a rough go at it.
Yeah, and I mean, and at first we just thought he was, really got too far into the rap scene, but no, he was really
living that
on,
life,
yeah, living the gang life. And you want to talk about Jesus snatching somebody up?
Yeah,
like I get teary-eyed just looking at what he posts on Facebook.
Yeah.
He's got a beautiful wife, beautiful kids. He's a teacher. And at Lawton High, wrestling coach at Lawton High, also has done some pastoral work. I'm not exactly sure if it's like a full-time or part-time deal, but like he just can't say a sentence without talking about what Jesus did for him.
And he's giving back to the kids like Adairs and Bears. Like he's really investing in those that are at Lawton High. I think he knows what they're going through, what they've been through, because he was there himself. And so to see him give back, to see him make that turn and do what he's doing, it's awesome.
When I've seen like pictures of him, like he started a chess club. Yeah. But I think if I'm remembering correctly, like in order to be a young man in the chess club, you have to wear like a tie, like a dress shirt and a tie or whatever. That. I may be conflating some stories here, but he's always posting pictures with these kids. And the thing is again, a lot of these kids, it's kind of hard to grow up in Lawton and not get clicked up because there's so many different gangs down there. especially if you come from one of these communities and one of these, family systems where, mom and dad may have both been Hoovers.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Just
Follow
go
in
to
those
school.
footsteps.
Like, you're probably going to, join the gang or whatever. And, he's dealing with a lot of kids that are like that, but he's just holding them seemingly to a higher expectation. It's like, no, we're not going to sag our pants, and we're not going to, we're not going to go get gang tattoos as a kid, and we're not going to do all this kind of stuff. And like, cause to this day, he's got some tattoos he has to keep covered up while he's at
wears
the school,
those long
and,
sleeves,
and that kind of a thing. And yeah, but it's different when you can point. It's like when Brad Glenn was here, that bootmaker out of Lubbock, like, he has an addict come into his shop. It's not, hey, you shouldn't do drugs. Drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. He's like, look at my arms.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, my arms are all jacked up from injecting meth, man. Like, I know exactly what you're going through.
Yeah.
But Christ is bigger than that.
Yeah.
And so that's the one that sticks out to me of all the people that we went to school with.
Yeah.
Where, like, someone who he and I haven't, kept up like super, super tight or whatever, but he's the one that kind of sticks out, because there's been people that have like ran for office and doing like stuff like that, but I don't really care about any of that.
His redemption story would be powerful, and what he's instilling in this next generation. I'd love to hear that podcast. I listened to this and have since the beginning, so it'd be cool to get him on here and share, because I think he could relate to a lot of people, and I think his story would resonate with those that listen to it.
Yeah, I'll hit him up. We got to get him up here at some time. But yeah, I actually do want to talk about that, because the Undaunted.Life thing has been weird. Okay, it started out with a devotional in 2016. And I've told the story a bunch before, but for anyone that we get new listeners every week, we're so thrilled to have you guys. But I was clicking through the YouVersion Bible app. All the men's devotionals were just awful.
Yeah.
Like they were literally like women's devotionals that have been repackaged for men and just put in the man category.
Yeah.
My church at the time, they were the ones that invented the YouVersion app. They said, well, you can write one to submit it. And I didn't know that. So I write a 21-day devotional. They accepted it. Oh, that's cool. I just forget about it. 6 months goes by. Oh, boom. It's like the second most read men's devotional in the history of the app, only behind Craig Rochelle's. And he's the pastor of the church that founded the app, right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Makes sense. He gets the best marketing, positioning and all that. And so I'm like, oh, geez, like there's something here.
Yeah.
And, YouVersion wants me to just write another devotional. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather just do what I did in college a lot, which is put some bullet points on a sheet of paper and then just flow, which leans to kind of the podcast medium. But dude, there was no, like, this wasn't in the plans.
Yeah.
Like 2 home studios, like multi-camera setup, #1 podcast for Christian men in the world, #1 men's devotional podcast with the Daily Blade.
Yeah.
Like none of that was like the plan. It was like, I've got some stuff on my chest. I want to get it out there, as opposed to getting into Facebook wars with people. And if, I never have more than 10 listeners that don't live in my household, well, I've worked as unto the Lord, and I can move on and do something else. But like, how did you even know I had started one? Because you, I think, were our very first monthly donor.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think it was you, because it was like $20 a month or something, or $25 a month or whatever. It was either you or Reg Aldridge. So shout out to Reg. He and I went to college together. Because I remember whenever y'all, like when I got the emails that y'all had signed up to be monthly donors, I remember being like shocked, proud, like nervous.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my gosh, like what if I say something like awful and they get disinvited to their Thanksgiving? Like, I just felt, but it was like validation from men that I respected and men that I, spent a lot of time with at different parts of my life. Like, okay, they're validating that this is stuff that's valuable to them. But like, how did you know I did that? I can't remember how I advertised.
So yeah, I was leading a men's group through different things at different times, and the way I got connected with it was through the YouVersion Bible app. And so I did that, and I challenged the men in the group to do that, and we went through it, and we talked about it along with what the other deal that we were doing. And then I think we've reached out and we talked and we reconnected, and then we've just kind of kept up since then. As soon as I heard that there's a podcast, I started subscribing and listening to everything.
Yeah.
And our views line up on a lot of the points that you make. And so I just couldn't get enough. And then as it's grown, I just continued to take in the content, appreciate what you're doing, appreciate that you stay true to your convictions no matter what. We may not always see eye to eye.
Yep.
I know, you encourage that. And I think that's great, because you can get on here and you can discuss those things. But man, I just appreciate the work that you're doing. I appreciate that you stay true to who you are. You don't apologize for it. You're Bible-based. That. You're solid in your foundation. And man, that's something I can get behind.
I appreciate that. And before my editor gets mad at you, let's move that mic in front of your face.
Sorry about that.
Drifting just a little bit. But no, so I'm curious for you, because it's kind of like, if someone's on like a fitness journey or a weight loss journey or a bodybuilding journey, they're with themselves every day.
Yeah.
And so they don't see how far they've come, right? But then they run into someone who hasn't seen them in a year and they're like, oh my gosh, look at you and all that.
Yeah.
So you've been listening since the single digit episodes.
Yes, sir.
Like we're closing in on 800 episodes.
Yeah.
And you've listened to basically all of them.
Yeah.
Like, so
pretty much. Yeah.
when I was only doing the first 99 episodes were solo.
Yeah.
Episode 100 was my first interview. Okay. So now we do interviews. Okay. Well, now we're doing 2 episodes a week. Okay. Well, now we're doing Forging Table.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what does that look like? And then, okay, offshoot. We've got the Daily Blade now with Joby. Like, oh, we've got Ask a Passer. We've got From the Senate with Mark Wayne Mullen. We've got all these different like modalities within the show. You've kind of been along for the ride. And so like, is there anything that you have noticed about, I don't know, like the stuff that I cover or my presentation or like how this has evolved? Because I will always remember this. I started the podcast the same year I started jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And so I started jiu-jitsu the summer of 2017, and this podcast started like November of 17. So like, is there anything that you've kind of like noticed as you like look back on all this?
Well, I mean, just like look at who you've had on the show. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you take a
Bunch of killers,
a step back and look, like you're influencing a huge audience, and what you're sharing is great. I don't know about this episode. You've kind of taken a step back, but I won't hold that against you.
You know, I think we got a pretty forgiving audience, you know.
But anywho, no, like just the things that you've talked about throughout the time, like what you've learned, like this setup is incredible. You know, you're talking about the pop sound of the peas when you first started, man. Like,
I'll show you our first studio. It's otherwise known as a closet downstairs that was just big enough for me to slink in and close the door behind me. I literally had my laptop on this closet shelf. I had my mic attached to this shelf, and it would be right here,
wow.
$50 mic from Amazon. And I get really animated when I talk, and this is before I did video.
were you hitting the walls?
Bro, I was in there in my underwear. But I mean, dude, there's the whole like closet's full of sweatshirts and there's blankets and there's all kinds of stuff. So it sounded pretty good.
I bet, yeah.
Because it was all dead in there. But like, I would be so hot when I would be done recording. I would open up the closet and I'd be like, come out, and I finally like got a little bit of air in there or whatever. But like, that was the first studio.
Yeah.
The next one was a slightly bigger closet on the other side of the house. And then I move up here to that little nook area that you can see in the studio.
Yeah.
And then we expand to, forging table. And then we expand to a 3-camera setup because of a very, very generous donor that wanted to see, some better visuals. And then now we're doing in-studio stuff. Like, you're one of my first in-studio people. And so it's just kind of working out well because of the book that we'll get to in a second. But yeah, none of this was planned.
Yeah, and absolutely. And how cool is that when you can take a step back and look at the closet that you started at, and then you take a peek around here and see where you're at. I mean, that's just God ordaining your steps. The right people at the right time, investing in you and you being obedient to what He's called you to do. It's encouraging to see, man. I'm proud of you. I'm proud for you.
I appreciate you saying that. And this is where people would normally insert something super Christianese sounding, but people have heard this before. But at some point, you just kind of lay your yes down. Okay, Lord, there's my yes. You slide across the table. Okay, so now what? Yeah. Like, what do you want me to do? And that's why I tell people, like, a lot of business schools and things, they try to get you to put, your 3 to 5 year, 5 to 10 year plan together. It's just like, bro, God's got to look at that and be like, that is so sweet and cute. Yeah. You don't think you're going to get sick in the next, few years.
Yeah.
You think you're still going to have that job.
Here's life.
Yeah. You don't think anyone's going to get, anything's going to happen. And your life can just how many people's lives can completely change with a phone call?
Yeah.
Right? And you just have to put your yes down, and then you just have to take it step at a time, because like, it was never the plan to be a professional podcaster and speaker.
Yeah.
But you know what also I didn't have on my bingo sheet for a couple of years ago? Collapsed vocal cord that I've been dealing with for however long, and 2 surgeries, the first one of which was not successful.
Yeah.
Think my career is over, right? There was like an atomic bomb dropped on my family last year and my extended family, and found out some just craziness. And I thought that this was done then too. Also not on my bingo sheet.
No.
And so, but it's like the moment you get in the game, Chris, that's what I tell guys that I coach. That's what I tell guys like you is, if you're on the couch in terms of your spiritual life and then you get up off the couch, immediately Satan's like, okay,
target.
All right.
Yep.
Like, you want to go? Let's go. Let's dance. And now he doesn't know he's defeated, right? He doesn't know that he has no shot. He only has as much of a shot as you allow And I mean, that's why I go back to things like Psalm 23. It's like the point of Psalm 23 is not that God delivers you from the valley. It's that when you're in the valley, he's there with you.
Yeah.
Right. And it's better to be in the valley of the shadow of death with God than to be, on streets of gold without him.
Right.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But we do need to talk about your book.
Yes.
So we got your book right here. It is called Margin, guys. This is in the show notes, so you can go and check this out. Please go get this book. It is in the show notes. This is, put out with a small group called Fulton Books. And so we have a lot of guys on here from like major publishing houses and all that. And, they built in, tens of $1,000s worth of loss and all these types of things. And you're not putting this together to get rich and all that type of stuff. But we'll start slow and we'll work our way through it. But there's a long story before we get to this book.
Yes,
so
sir.
Where do you want to start?
You mentioned a phone call that changes everything. And I think that's where this started. That's where my journey started. You know me, you know my background. I was a Christian. I was doing the things that I thought that I should be doing. But I feel like I was doing it more in a self-reliant state than I want to have admitted. I think back to the time I was living on a mountaintop, but I was doing it thinking it was in my power. I felt like I was doing the things that I was supposed to do. I was serving, but I don't know that I was motivated by the right things. And I say that because when you get that phone call, that becomes super apparent to you. The phone call that I got that took me from the mountaintop to the valley was that my son, who had turned 13 on September 21st, 2022, was at an OU football game with his mom, stepdad, and best friend. This was 4 days after his birthday. I had seen him that morning. We had a football game for another one of my boys in Altus, so spent time with him there, knew he was going up to the game, visited with him, said, have the time of your life, send me pictures, text me, and he was having the time of his life. After the game, he was coming back. It was a night game. I was out at the house that we just built with some friends. We were having a barbecue, was dried in. I wasn't there yet. We weren't living there yet. The house was just something that we were enjoying spending time at. Man, it was a great night. Peaceful, steaks, filet mignons. I mean, everything that you would want hanging out with friends. Music, cornhole, just enjoying life. We were staying in the house for the first time that night. Had air mattresses, no electricity, just kind of enjoying. Set up the air mattresses, brought in the blankets from the truck. We're going to lay down, and the phone rang. And what I was told was there was an accident and that it was bad and that they could provide updates on everybody in the vehicle except my John. And so as soon as we heard that, another friend that was there with me, his boy was my son's best friend. So we hopped in the truck and we headed north up 44. The crash happened on 44 just past that McDonald's there in the median. And we got from Cache to there in like 40 minutes. I mean, we were flying. But again, phone calls were coming in and we could get updates on everybody except John. So I saw a helicopter on the north side of the McDonald's. We pulled in there, got out, rushed over there to see if they were working on John, and that's why we couldn't get any update. It was not him. It was another one that was in the vehicle that was being meta-flighted off, and they directed us to where the crash was. So we went over there and got on scene. Highway Patrol was there, and he told me that John didn't make it. And so, you're 30 minutes ago up here, and then all of a sudden you're rock bottom. And everything that you thought you knew, everything that was important to you an hour ago no longer even matters. Everything that you believed an hour ago, you don't even know if you believe anymore. I mean, it's something that I don't even know really how to explain what those moments brought on you. And then not just those moments, but from that point on. And so that's where that night left me. Just agony. Everything from that point on was just agony. And so that's the beginning of the book. From that, of course, you have to go through the funeral services. The part of the accident that really was haunting to me as a dad is that the driver of the vehicle was drunk and on meth. Multiple offenses prior to that, and he was coming home, or he thought he was in Oklahoma City driving down 44 towards Lawton, and he hit that vehicle going in excess of 100 miles an hour. Left the scene. My John was there by himself, and that guy left. And so beyond just the initial shock, I had to deal with all of the, I don't know if hatred's the right word, because I try to minimize hatred, but feelings towards a man who took the life of my son unfairly, shortened the life of my son unfairly. And so from a mountaintop to this is my new reality was a huge shock for me.
Hey guys, real quick. I know a lot of you guys struggle with getting a consistent workout routine. So wherever you get to, whether that's the Globo gym or your home gym or even like a parking lot somewhere, you get there and then you don't know what to do. You get there and you're just like, well, what in the world am I supposed to do today? And you just kind of meander around, and maybe you're trying to get ready for like a mountain hunt in the fall, or you've got a mud race coming up, or you just want to be generally a strong and fit dude for normal everyday life, but you don't have a program that's tailored for you. I want you guys to stop wasting time at the gym or wherever you're working out and just settling for that same old routine that you've always done. It's time for you to get a guide that will help you reach your fitness goals. And that's why I want to introduce you to my friends over at Mountain Tough. Mountain Tough is a fitness and mental toughness app developed by military special operators and mountain hunters that's becoming a global movement for building mentally tough athletes on and off the mountain. So Mountain Tough is a native app ready to be downloaded on all platforms. So that includes iPhone, Android, Apple TV, and Roku. Once you sign up and download the app or access the website, you immediately have access to literally hundreds of exercise programs and thousands of workout videos. Thousands, okay? That includes structured hybrid strength and endurance programs, daily workouts, the full exercise library, mental toughness training, prehab and rehab, the Mountain Tough community and accountability, and a bunch of other stuff. And guys, you can use it all on the go, online or offline, no matter where you decide to train. Just getting started? No problem. They've got programs for beginners. Have minimal gear or no gear? All good. They have minimal gear and bodyweight programs. Wanting to get into or maintain elite level fitness like me? They've got you covered with programs for top tier athletes too. And guys, for a limited time, Mountain Tough is extending Undaunted Lifers like you an incredible offer. Go to mountaintough.com. That's MTNtough.com and enter the code Kyle when you sign up for a monthly plan to receive your first month free after your 14-day free trial. So for guys that aren't good at math, that is 6 weeks free to make sure this app is for you, and I'm sure it will be. That is 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app in the world. Stop wasting time. It's time to get real fitness results and let my friends at Mountain Tough guide the way. Again, go to MTN Tough. That's mountaintough.com, promo code Kyle. So to go back, and I know this is no fun, but obviously there's value here, and there's a lot of nuggets that I think would be important for our audience. But you have several kids, but the ultimate nightmare for a parent, is losing a kid. And I remember when I heard about it, just hurting for you, hurting for your, John's mom, and you automatically see your kids.
Yeah.
But then you find out about other people that this has happened to.
Yeah.
And there's always an unjust thing about it. And I don't remember the exact details because it's kind of hard when you reach out to somebody after finding out something like this, because what in the world do you frickin' say?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everyone just defaults to if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. And as I said before, I hate that, because all you're doing is transferring a burden onto someone that's, basically dying inside. Hey, can you come up with something to do so I feel better?
Yeah.
Something for me to do so I feel better. But when you go back to those early days, as a Christian, what does that do to you when your innocent child is killed by somebody and you weren't there? Because there's complicated feelings there. Because you want to talk about looking back, like, okay, well, what if you had taken them to the game?
Yeah.
What if he had stayed with you and stayed on the air mattresses that night? What if, the direction of your family had been different? And, every circumstance on the planet is there. And so that car's not even there for that guy to hit.
Yeah.
So go back there and kind of take us through your process and your journey through those feelings.
Yeah, and I think I delve into some of that in the book. I feel like as the man of my family, I'm responsible for what happens. I feel like as the man, I'm supposed to lead in a way that protects those that are in my family. I put it in the book as guarding my garden. My family is my garden, and it's my job to protect them. Your mind can be so cruel, and I think you and I talked about this because you checked on me quite a bit, and I think that I would look for fault on my side that led to this happening. And man, your mind will torment you. Like all of those things that you talked about would keep me up at night. You like, if I had done this differently, would my path have been different? Would Jon have been here? There wasn't much directly that I could have done that night. However, there was all of these things up to that night that if one thing had been different, he might not have been in that car. And so the responsibility, the weight, the heaviness of that, man, it just drowned me. It tormented me. I felt like I was a prisoner in my mind of those torturous thoughts, and I couldn't escape them. You would challenge me to think about things. You say you don't know what to say, but I can think back to some of those early conversations that, although I don't know that I could receive them in those moments, they were beneficial for me to hear, and they would resonate in my mind afterwards when those thoughts would hit. Like, okay, no, this is not where I need to spend my time. Didn't always work, but it helped. And so I think that that's important to know, that when you don't know what to say, but you're being obedient and you're following, you can help folks, and you did help me. And so, those kind of things are important. I think from the Christian aspect, man, there was a lot to unpack. Like I said, everything that you think that you know is a doubt at that point. Like, I know God's good. I've seen him do so much good in my life. I was angry at him. Like, he wasn't driving the car. He didn't cause that accident that night. But my mind, my hurt, my grief didn't allow me to understand why he didn't stop it. And so I still struggle at times with that, even knowing that God is good, even knowing that he has a purpose in this story, even though that he knows that Jon's story can help other people who are in hurting situations. I still wrestled with him. And I think that there was benefit in that. I think that, I align with a lot of your thoughts on, we need to focus more on the Lion of Judah aspect of who God is. And I lived that way, where I approached him with a reverence and fear and what I would want to see as a father figure in my life. I don't think that I gave enough to the grace side until I needed it. And so learning that side of God in a way of, man, I don't have to come with him with the appropriateness of what to say or have to be perfect in my appearance to approach God. Like, I can be mad. Like, I can have those thoughts that you're not supposed to say in a church to God, and he's still going to be there with me. He's going to show me his character. He's going to walk through me, because when I was self-reliant, I didn't depend on him. I knew he was going to be there, and I tried to do the things that I knew were right, but I didn't rely on him. I didn't allow him to be God. I tried to hold on to that control. But when you get to the point where you're at rock bottom and you can't even decide what you're going to wear that day, like, you have to take a backseat role and allow God to be who he wants to be in the relationship with you. Man, he carried me. He carried me through a lot of days where I didn't know how I was going to get through. Prior to that, it was checklist of, okay, successful at work, successful family, built the house, do the things that you're supposed to do. None of that mattered, man. Nothing mattered, and it reprioritized the things that were important, which were the people in your life, making sure that the ones that you love know that you love them, and then just getting back to a point where you could be the man that you need to be moving forward. And that's a journey, a grief journey that I think I'm still on. I'm still learning day to day from.
When I've said this before, and it's one thing to say it in the the ethereal or in kind of the philosophical world, and it's another thing to say that when it's happening to you. But when a little kid dies and you hear about it on the news and something like that, and someone says, oh, how could there be a good God? This 5-year-old girl was kidnapped and raped and brutally murdered and all that. Like, how can any good come from that? When you say something like that, you're taking the seed of God, looking at a singular situation between two human beings and saying, net negative, there's no way it can be any way else.
Yeah.
But you have no idea all the things that kind of come off of a singular story. It could be someone that attends the funeral, that, Christ reveals himself to them at the funeral. It could be scholarships that are created in a kid's honor. It could be any number of positive things that happen. And when you say that there can't be a God because something like that happened, you're claiming to have knowledge of all these disparate impact points that stem from that moment. Don't end there. They start there.
Yeah.
Right? But when it's your son,
yeah,
it's not a cute saying anymore.
No.
But and we'll get to the impact that Jon's memory has had and beyond that. But I want to talk about the man, because what I remember a lot about the aftermath is you and I would talk a lot about the guy that killed him.
Yeah.
Because situation's not just over after the funeral's over, right?
Right.
Because this guy was caught. He was arrested. There were charges filed. There were, legal proceedings. And I don't know how much you can share on here, but I remember during those different proceedings, you weren't calling me asking me for legal advice. You weren't calling me asking me. It was like, hey, I hate him and I want to kill him.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I don't remember what I said, other than I was just trying to listen. God, give me something here.
Yeah.
Like, God, I got nothing. Like, I don't. So whatever you heard in those moments, like, it was filtered through this goofy head, like, out my face hole. But I just, like, you never deal with that. And I mean, the DMs I get and the emails I get from people, they're just heavy, man.
Yeah.
Because people listen to me for a few hundred hours and all of a sudden they feel like they know me and they don't have anyone else in their life that they can turn to. And so they message a podcaster, right?
Yeah.
In their moment of need, right? Everything from, hey, man, I don't know if I should marry this woman, to, hey, I don't know if I should live anymore,
yeah.
right? And everything in between. But like for you, take us through that process of, all right, you find out that he's been caught. You know his name now.
Yeah.
Okay, you got a picture. You know what he looks like. You know his background. And then you get into legal proceedings and then all the feelings you were going through with all that.
I think it's important to note that process is so long.
Yeah.
Like, they got him, and before we had a first hearing, it was months and months and months. And so that's important for perspective, because normal life is happening by that point. So I have to return to work. I mean, I have a job that needs me. So I'm back into that. Kids are back in sports. Like, I'm trying to find a new flow of what normal looks like. Then you have a court hearing. And so I see a man that all of this is internalized to some extent. And it's like, I almost liken it to like Jesus going into the temple, like that amount of anger inside of me. I don't know if mine was righteous anger. I felt initially. I felt justified in it because of what he took from me. And then your brain just goes into this tailspin. And I could remember days after I would be worthless. So like just seeing a man and having it affect me that much. And that would be when I would call you. But man, months and months after this, trials, postponed, dates that were set for different phases of the process postponed, changing of lawyers, all of this stuff factors in, and it's just emotionally and physically draining. And like I said, every time we'd have something as far as that would go, I'd be down for 2 or 3 days, just nothing to give to anybody.
No way around it.
No. And so what ultimately I think was beneficial was I think he felt remorse for what he did. And I didn't know that until the sentencing hearing at the very end. And so I had demonized him for 1.5 years in my mind, because what else do you do? I mean, a guy who's had multiple chances to change his life doesn't. He's addicted to a lot of things, or was at that time, and it overcame him. And he made some decisions that I'm sure he wishes every day that he could take back. Significance and that a child was killed. But I think that while you're sitting at jail, you have to evaluate your life choices and where you're at. One of the things you said, you don't know what you said. One of the most significant things that you said at the beginning, when I first talked to you, was begin with the end in mind. And so I don't know if you remember the specifics of that conversation.
Yeah, because I remember I'd just been going over some Covey stuff, and he was talking more in a leadership, business management context, but it's like, I tried to apply it to your situation to where it's like, what is the desired end state here? Yeah. And then we work backwards from there. Yeah. Because, again, I'm not big on big, long future plans, but I think you can see where an end state is, and then we're going to reverse engineer this thing.
Super helpful for me. You also shared a story of forgiveness in that time and what that could do in a similar type scenario. Man, I don't know that I'm still at forgiveness, just looking you in the eyes and being transparent with that. But I think that helped me on my journey. For me, personal resolution was once he's sentenced and once he, whatever is deemed appropriate for him, I was going to be able to let him go. I don't know if that's forgiveness or not, but that's not what I'm going to spend my effort moving forward. I want to honor Jon. I want to honor who he was and what he stood for. And so I think that was a transition point for me was that hearing. Everything was decided beforehand. Like I said, he was remorseful the day of. He knew what the sentence was going to be. It was going to be a life sentence. It wasn't trialed. It was a plea deal that was made. If he's ever to get out again, he's going to go back to jail on Jon's birthday to honor his memory. And so I knew all that going in, but the last hurdle was the victim impact statements that were to be read at sentencing. And man, that was a heavy one. I didn't know what to say. Yeah. I can write anything business-wise. I've been able to write a book. I could not write one word on the paper to express what I was feeling there. Like I didn't know how to do it. And so, man, it was that point. I was at a low point in life. Couldn't figure out what I was going to do. I called up my pastor and I said, Robert, I'm still trying to rely on self in a time where I can't get through. Like, I don't know what to do now. Like, I think that was even more rock bottom than at the beginning because you have to go back to life. And so I still expected myself to be able to perform at things that would continue to deplete me as I was going forward. And so it was at that point that I was like, hey, I need some help. And I've never been one to do therapy, counseling, that kind of stuff, but I didn't know what else to do. And that's where I found myself.
So just to put a bow on him, what was the final sentence like? What was the official sentence that he received?
So life sentence. And then, like I said,
if he ever gets out, he has to go back on Jon's birthday to serve a day.
For a day.
Yeah.
And
poetic and appropriate all at the same time.
I think so.
Obviously. Okay, so let's get to Jon. I got to watch Jon grow up.
Yeah.
Right? Because of Facebook.
Yeah.
So Facebook can suck a lot, but it can also be pretty awesome because you can learn about people and keep up with people. And I mean, there are human beings that love Kelsey and I that have watched James and Eli grow up and they've never seen him in person.
Yeah.
So you will see my boys for the first time in person. Whenever we get done with this and go downstairs, we'll probably hear them before we see them. They're in that banshee stage. But, you bury Jon. You've got real life. You've got a new family, new house. You still have your other kiddos.
3 kiddos.
Right, the other 3 kiddos. But at some point, you kind of make a decision as his dad that, okay, it can't just be everyone felt real bad for a time period and then, like, that's it. There has to be some sort of enduring legacy with Jon because Jon had some very specific qualities to him that were very attractive, like for friends, for family, just in general.
Yeah.
Had some very godly qualities that a lot of adults would want in themselves, and they were just natural to Jon. And so what do you even do, like, to pick yourself up off the floor to be like, okay, we're not just going to remember, but we're going to honor as we do so?
Yeah. I think the cool thing is at the beginning, I couldn't even think along that front.
Yeah.
But the Cash community did. And so the things that they did to honor him, like, Jon was a wrestler.
Yep.
Man,
community, let's go.
Loved wrestling. You got to come watch him. I think it was JOC or State one time when we were in Oklahoma City. Right. Man, it was everything to him. Jon wasn't a big kid. He was pretty small.
He was the smallest kid on the team.
We tried him in every sport, and he just always had a disadvantage because of his stature until wrestling, and he super excelled in it. And so one of the things that the community did like almost immediately, like a month after, was they did the Jon Zerzavy Memorial Takedown Tournament. And man, just almost overwhelms me even now thinking about what they did. Raised bukus of money for the family. What the cash community did, paid for all of the services. I mean, there was no out-of-pocket expenses for anything involved in the services for Jon, and honored him at the same time with something that meant so much to him and something that meant so much to me, because we spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours together doing wrestling. Young wrestling, you get to get involved. I was always a part of the club. I always got to coach with him. So there wasn't many tournaments that I didn't get to be in his corner. So I'm talking hundreds of tournaments together all over the state. And so to see him honored in that way with that community is something that started off memorializing him. And then, like I said, after the transition of my obsession with justice turning into letting this man go, turning into honoring Jon's life, then I could start thinking about what I wanted to do to memorialize him and honor him and who he was.
I remember during one of our conversations, you said it was something along the lines of you were going to start writing. The writing might kind of turn into a book. You want to get some of your thoughts down as it pertains to what went down with Jon, that would at least be a level of catharsis for you, to where you can kind of get some of your thoughts out, because some people need that. Like, that's partially why I do this show, right?
Yeah.
Because I have these things, these topics, these philosophies that I just need an excuse to research and think them through thoroughly.
Yeah.
So that I can cogently present an argument as to, hey, we should think about this situation this way, or this way. But it's also cathartic for me because it allows me to just get the thought out.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't feel like I'm screaming into the abyss, but I'm like sending it off into the airwaves to maybe help somebody else. So like, at what point do you decide, no, I'm not just, kind of jotting things down journal style, but this might be a book that could help some people?
Yeah. So for me, it was thoughts that were just keeping me up at night. Like, I was to the point where I wasn't sleeping, and this was a year after the accident. Yeah. So like, I'd gotten to a point where I was able to sleep, function normal again. But then it kind of came back and everything was just running through my head. So I'd lay there night after night. And that's when I was talking to you. I talked to Lauren. She encouraged me first to write it down. And that's when I talked to you and I said, hey, I'm going to do this and see what it looks like. And as I did, it started taking the shape of what I thought could help people. I was vulnerable in it. Some of the things I share in the book, like I worried when people would read it. Man, just the hurt, the crash itself, like sharing that level of detail, the vulnerability of realizing that everything that I thought I knew, I didn't know anymore, like the stuff we've talked about today, and even sharing who Jon was with the world. Like, there's a level of vulnerability to that. Like, that's something that was special to me, but is it going to have any impact on the people who would read it? And the feedback from it is absolutely. Like, people can relate to the specifics of who Jon was. And so it's cool. Man, people, especially who have lost someone, whether it be a kid, family member, they can relate to the different phases that I went through. And so being able to share that in a light that touches folks has proven to be beneficial and honors Jon at the same time.
So what has that been like? Because I'm trying to think of some specific examples. Well, there's somebody that I was helping at a time in the past, and he had a mare's that dissolved for something that he did not do. So we'll just leave it at that. And I'm trying to help him figure some stuff out. But because of what I do, and because I'm in that men's space, I knew of some other guys that had gone through a similar situation. And so I can be like, hey, he intellectually knows he's not alone, but when that happens to a guy, you feel like you're the only person.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure at some point you feel like, well, I'm the only person that's ever lost a kid.
Yeah.
Like, you know that's not true, but it just feels like that. But then God starts bumping you into people that, wouldn't you know it, they're 10 years past.
Yeah.
Tragically losing their kid. 20 years past losing their kid. 5 days past losing their kid. And now all of a sudden, you're in a position where you're gaining wisdom and support from others, but now you are uniquely suited to help someone else, not because you read a book, but because you wrote a book, but because you experienced it.
You've been there.
Right. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that, like kind of what you've seen now that we're years past this thing, the fruit that has come off of the fact that you, again, struggle.
Yeah.
I'm tired of people talking about the struggle, using struggle language. Oh, I struggle with porn. I struggle with being in shape. If you struggled, you would be further along by now. You would have arrived at some point. But you were at a point where you were trying to make it to the next hour.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you don't really understand that until you're there, until you are calling someone hoping they answer because you don't know if you're going to make it.
Yeah.
Right? And you just get that little bit of support. You get that little bit of support, and then you start, those stretches of time in between when you really need help start to elongate, right? But for you, just take us through some of the fruit you've seen.
Yeah. So it's a club you don't want to be involved in.
Yeah.
But you're there. And so I can remember days after losing John, folks who had lost kids reaching out to me. And some of them, like you said, weren't very much further along in their journey than I was. Still super raw for them, but wanted to be there for me and my hurt because they knew what I was going through. Two people who were 5 years out that are like, okay, I remember day one. Let me walk with you. Let me sit here.
Yeah.
Let me be there. And so I don't, it's not even like it's a duty to do that. It's like, I know what you're hurting with. Like, I don't want you to be alone in these moments. And so that's what people did for me. And that's what, in turn, you have an innate desire to do for other people. Like, I don't want you sitting alone with these thoughts that I had. I don't want you to sit alone on that struggle because I know what it did to me. And so, man, just talking to people, being there to people, knowing that you can't say anything in that moment that's going to make it better, that it can even be chastising to suggest that you know what they're feeling, because you don't. Like, everybody's different. And it doesn't, people have said to me, like, you lost a kid. I can't imagine that. My loss is nothing compared to yours. No, your loss is super significant to you. Like, my situation doesn't demean your loss. Like, it's a huge loss. And I want to be there for you and your hurt because you were there for me and my hurt. And I want to be there to be able to be a ear, somebody to lean on, somebody to make sure you're taking care of yourself, or just sit there in silence if that's what you need. Because there was times where I needed that. To do that, to talk to people, to get feedback from the book of, this is what I need to hear. I felt like God had you write that for me. Like, that is where, although it can be depleting, although meeting on a podcast might be uncomfortable for me, like, it's for a purpose. Like, God wanted to use a situation that he didn't ordain this to happen, but he wants it to help people that he cares about as well. Like, I think for me, it's significant in that the sacrifice that God made through Jesus became real because I've lost a son. Like, if I love you, if it was a choice for me to sacrifice my kid for you,
see you later,
I wouldn't do it, buddy.
Yep.
I love you. James or Squish, I'm sure you'd say, I miss you, buddy.
That's right.
And so, like, it legitimized in my mind the sacrifice that God made for us. And, like, yes, I was angry at times, but I see what he did for me in my lowest points. I see who he brought, when, how he took care of me when I couldn't see that he was doing it. And I didn't have to, I could be genuine with who I was and where I was with him. And it didn't change anything. Like, he was still there for me. And so the grace side of God became so relevant to me for somebody who is type A achiever. Let's focus on the just side of God all this time, because I align with your thought process. That's the way my brain is wired. So to experience grace and allow myself to offer myself grace was something that I wasn't comfortable with. But you got to be. When you can't even get out of bed, you got to be. And so I guess that speaks to that a little bit. I don't know if I got into every aspect of your question there, but
you did. I'm curious, and I'm not being voyeuristic or trying to be incendiary in any way, but the grace of God becomes real to you because of what you've experienced and what you've experienced after, not just the kinetic moment. But then along with the grace of God becomes the forgiveness of God.
Yeah.
And so when we're told to forgive those that have trespassed against us, it's not because that's just generally good advice.
Yeah.
It's because God, through Jesus, forgave us and gave us a pathway back to himself.
Yeah.
Right? And so earlier when you basically said you're not there yet with John's killer, unpack that a little bit for me, because I'm not saying I wouldn't be in the exact same position as you are right now. And I think most people in our audience understand that and are not critical of that position. But that's the other side of the coin of the gospel, which is grace extended, right? A grace that we have to accept. But there's a forgiveness in that as well, because there is a debt that's owed that it's not like, like student loan debt, where you don't just cancel student loan debt. No, you're transferring it, right?
Yeah.
You're forgiving a loan, right? You're forgiving a debt, rather. It's being transferred to the back of Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? And so for you, what would you feel like in terms of your internal consternation is with the whole forgiveness piece? Because some people would argue you're not going to be able to operate in the way that God does there until you've made the decision to forgive.
Yeah. And I've heard this discussion on your podcast with several of folks. I think you and Joby have talked about this. I think you and some
He's
of the
the one that told me
Robertsons.
forgiveness is a decision, not a feeling.
Yeah. And I think that there's some significant relevance to that. I think at some point it would behoove me to forgive this man for me. I don't think that the forgiveness is for him, but for me. And I think part of that was the let go piece of it. I think I'm gonna answer this in a roundabout way, but you talk about the significance of events that have happened since then. And in chapter 9, I talk about how we can live like Jon. One of the things that I think was most significant was at that sentencing hearing. I told you I couldn't write my statement. It took me forever, and I finally was able to get up something that I wanted to share that day, and I had it prepared, fine-tuned, ready to go. 2 weeks before the sentencing hearing was scheduled, I was sitting at church on Sunday and was just overwhelmed. Like, it happens now. It didn't used to, but emotions are a little bit more raw anymore. And the impact statement that wasn't going to be heard that day was Jon's. And he was the one who was affected most that day. And man, I'm sitting at church and that just overwhelms me. I'm bawling. I couldn't talk. And like, when I finally got it together and I told Lauren, like, that bothers me, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to write what I think he would say. And I did. And one of the things about Jon that was special is he would have forgiven that man. And I know that.
Yeah.
And so you said begin with in mind. I know Jon would have forgiven him. And so that was the crutch of the impact statement that I wrote on Jon's behalf is, this was not fair. My family is hurting, and there's some responsibility that you have to take for that. However, Jesus forgave me, and I didn't deserve it, and I forgive you. And so, like, I prepared that, didn't know if I was going to read it, didn't know if I was going to give it the DA to read, but I did share it that day. The impact of that, I guess, is something that I didn't anticipate. So for me, I was going there that day to get this off my chest, to mark that off of the list so that I could move on with my life. It never occurred to me that he would have family there.
Yeah.
And so I read that for me. His family was losing a son too. They may never see him again. You don't know what's going to happen in prison.
Right.
And so they may never see their son again, brother, uncle, whatever the case may be. And so getting there that day, reading that, and then after, there was a couple of things that were significant that happened. The judge looked at me at the end, directly at me. Several people read the statement, but he was looking at me, and he said, I wish I could have known Jon. And he said, I wish I could have had a conversation with him, and I wish I could have watched him wrestle. Man, hits me in the feels even now. Afterwards, we go out to the gallery, and these random people come up and just start hugging me, and it's his family. And just grateful that I was able to share what Jon would have said. Grateful that he would have been able to offer him forgiveness, remorse for the actions that were not their responsibility at all. And then we all got to pray together. And so like the impact of the people in that courtroom that never even got to meet Jon was significant to me. And that motivated me to push and write through and get through the hard, because if he can have that impact on that room, who else needs to hear? Who else needs to experience who Jon was? And what impact could that have on those folks that need to hear it, that don't know that they need to hear it?
That's why, I want to give the book such a good endorsement, because you sent this to me. This was before it was even accepted, right?
It was early, really early, just to see what you thought. Yeah.
Really, really early copy, and I buzzed right through it. And I mean, again, guys, like we spend stupid money on stupid things, and it's like, if you can't find it in your budget to buy this book, then I need to have Dave Ramsey on the show so we can talk to you guys. But so as we dig into the book, this is this was one of the first editions that sent to me and all that. And so I mean, you can obviously get kind of an idea from the different chapter titles where you talk about the crash early on, but then you're talking about relational margin, professional margin, spiritual margin, different things. And then chapter 9, living like Jon, is kind of how you bring it all back. But just give the audience kind of a 30,000 foot overview of the book, because we've kind of picked around at the edges. But what do you want people to come away with after they read it?
Yeah. So again, it's a book to honor Jon first and foremost. The stuff that I have presented here, though, was very much a practical, I guess, lessons learned from trying to overcome an obstacle that I didn't think that I would ever face. The front of the book, I don't know if you can see it, is a guy climbing the front face of a mountain.
Yeah, show it to that camera right there.
This one right here. Yeah. Yep. So a common theme throughout the book is when life takes you to rock bottom, which it will, at some point you have to reapproach the mountain and begin your climb again. And that's where I found myself. Like I said, the anchor points that were set along my life of the things that I believed in were ripped out of the mountain in an instant. And I found myself at rock bottom with nowhere to go. I mean, that's where I found myself for months and months and months. But when you get to the point where you're ready to reapproach that mountain and climb, things that you used to could have expected of yourself, you can't deliver on anymore. I mean, you're type A, you go. There's nothing I can't do. There's nothing I can't accomplish. Well, in this phase of life, there's nothing that you could accomplish that was easy before. Yeah. And so like, I mean it, like getting out of bed, like deciding small things like what to eat, like everything was it just exhausted you. And so this navigates the journey. And also, it takes a second to take a step back and reevaluate what's important. So, like every facet of your life wants so much from you. If you're investing in everything equally, what's important? And if you say yes to everything, how much are you giving to each facet of your life? So, I delved into each thing that was important. Like, I have to make a living for my family. So, what do I need to do to be able to approach my job and be successful in that and not invest too much where I don't have, areas to give to other things, energy to give to other things. I looked at, my roles in the church. Like I said, I was investing in leading men's groups, going to different conferences, doing as much as I could to try to help. I didn't have it. Like, for me to get up was a struggle. Even now, sometimes going to church and hearing worship songs is still a struggle because Jon loved worship. That was his favorite thing. And hearing those songs, I just hear him sing it. And so it can deplete me. So like knowing that I needed to have margin in my life in every area, spiritual, work, responsibilities outside of work, even with my family, like I needed to be able to have enough of myself to give to them, like help me navigate what to do to move forward to be successful. Man, I had to say no to a lot of things. Like I really had to reserve myself for what was absolutely necessary of me. And when you do that, you can start climbing again. You can start on your journey again. And when you do, and you start building margin, when you start setting your life up with a space where you can truly examine what's important and not take away from one thing and sacrifice it for something else, you really can start operating in what your intended purpose is. I know moving forward, like, my purpose is to honor Jon. My purpose is to help people who have been on a similar journey. And that's why I'm here. Like this is uncomfortable for me, but I'm doing it because it's my purpose. Talking to people, it can exhaust you. Like you said, what you get reached out to is a burden that you have to take on yourself. If you don't have margin because you're going in 1,000 directions, it's going to deplete you to the point where you're going to hit rock bottom. So you gotta stay conscious of that in all aspects of life. It's not just a tragic loss like this. Like, there's practicality of this, what I present in this book, to anybody at every phase of their life. Like, you could be on rock bottom, but you could benefit from this. You can be on the mountaintop and still implement things that will benefit you for the longer haul. And another point that I think that's significant in here, I call it a safety net. You call it a foxhole.
Yeah.
It's a similar thought process. Man, when you fall, you got to have somebody that's going to catch you. You got to have a group of folks that are going to catch you. You may sit on guys, because this is a men's podcast. And I do think that that's super significant for men. You can't rely on females for a married man, and that creates different angst. But if you have a group of people that are looking out for your best interests, that are going to be there for you no matter what, man, that'll help you get through some tough times. And that will call you out. Hey, you're investing too much here. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating? Are you doing the things that are important to you? And that's essential to navigating life's hardships.
Chris, that's what I tell people all the time. It's like, you have to have men in your life that are consequential to you.
Yeah.
You have to have men that are close enough to you where they can snatch you up by your shirt if you're doing something wrong, or they can stop you from doing something wrong, or they can pull you to doing something right. And that's like, you may have buddies from high school. You may have buddies that you were in a frat with in college. You may have dudes that you used to work with, or dudes you went through basic training with, or whatever the thing is. And it doesn't mean you don't love those people. They're just not consequential to you.
Yeah.
Like, I got guys that, used to be like best friends of mine that were here that just don't live here anymore. And it's like, okay, well, they're just not consequential. It doesn't mean that I won't drop what I'm doing to go help them. It just means it's going to take a while, and I might have to hop on an airplane to get there. Right. Yeah. And like, you can't have only airplane buddies, right? You got to have same side of town buddies.
Yeah.
Right. Because the thing is the valley is guaranteed.
Yeah.
You're either in it, coming out of it, or about to go into it.
Yeah. Right.
And sometimes it's just your turn.
Yeah.
And, for me, I recently got some news that some very important people in my life are sick. And, it's just, what's my first thought, right? Take this to God. And then it's like, okay, I got to take this to my foxhole. I got to take this to my brothers.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, hey, I don't need anything from you. I just need you to know I'm going through this.
Yeah.
And, I may lean on you for something here or there, just letting you know. And then guys start, doing what a foxhole does. They start like blocking and tackling and trying to figure out, okay, how can we support Kyle in this moment?
Yeah.
Right. But sometimes, guys, it's like, you got to have someone that when you're on the floor, literally for some of you, when you're on the floor and you can't get up, right, that you got someone that is going to answer you, they're going to be there to pick you up.
Yeah.
Right. That's going to help you get to that next hour. That's just going to sit there. Right. And just let you talk at them. Right. Yeah. And so where can people get the book? Because it'll be in the show notes, because some people are confused about what show notes means. So if they're listening to this and they just want to do it the old-fashioned way, where can they get the book?
Absolutely. It's on Amazon. You can get it there. Barnes & Noble, you can get it there. All of the digital formats, iTunes, Kindle, Nook, anywhere you can search. Just search Margin by Chris Zerzavy, and it'll be there.
That is Zerzavy, Zerzavy. I'm glad you wrote this, because we went to a guy whose in school, his last name was Paholski. Yeah. And so it's like, we don't have to try to remember that. But yeah, it's Chris Zerzavy, Zerzavy. You guys can check it out there. But man, that's all for me. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest?
I think just that last point that you made is very significant. The 6 a.m. or the 3 a.m. friend that you talk about.
Yeah.
Man, I needed it. And so I can tell you about a couple examples, and I think it helps to solidify because you've been saying it for years and years. Man, it was the week after Jon passed. I have a gym in my garage. Was still trying to keep up with it, but my buddy that used to work out with me, who is a 3 a.m. friend, no matter what friend, going to be there all the time, he said, we're going to start working out together at 6 a.m. at least 3 times a week, and has every week since then. It wasn't something that I could argue. I tried because I didn't want to.
Good luck.
I didn't want to commit to it, but he knew I needed it. And so there was times where we would get together and we work out in silence. There was times where I didn't have much to give. And there was times that I would pour out my heart. And he absolutely was there for that. Man, if I didn't have that 3 a.m. friend, I don't know that those first couple of months would have been bearable. And so what Kyle is saying on that, what he's told all of us, like, it's easy to hear, but you gotta build those now. That
Right,
3 a.m.
Chris, it's not always easy to cultivate.
Yeah.
Because if your life is full of family and sports and hobbies and your Netflix habit and your TikTok habit and your whatever habit, you're thinking to yourself, because guys like to lament,
Yeah.
I don't have guys like that. That is one of the most common, if not the most common thing that I get in my DMs and emails is, I don't have guys like that. How do I get them?
Yeah.
And I say, like, well, where would you go looking for one of these types of people?
Yeah.
Like, I don't live in your city.
Yeah.
Like, why are you asking me? Like, where do guys congregate? Where do guys congregate that you don't want to be like? Okay? All right, so don't go to those places.
Don't go there.
Where do the guys congregate that are guys that you would want to be like? Right? And I tell people, be careful at churches because you might get a lot of, kind of doughy, frumpy guys that know a lot of worship music. But, when your chips are down at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're not calling that dude. He's probably too busy, like, pressing his khakis or whatever. But it's like, where are those people at?
Yeah.
Are they at the jiu-jitsu gym? Are they at the CrossFit gym? Are they at your place of work? Are they the other dads on your kid's baseball team? Are they PTA? Are they HOA? Like, where are these guys?
Yeah.
Right? And then it's like, then they start thinking. And then they start thinking like, oh, then you know how it is, like when you buy a new truck, right? And then all of a sudden you see every other truck in town that's exactly like the truck that you bought. And you're like, wait, did everyone buy the same truck at the same place at the same time? No, your brain's just turned on for it. You're like tuned up, like to notice those things. Same thing in that situation. You're tuned up to look for those types of guys.
Yeah.
But then finding them is not enough. You got to see them.
Yeah.
You got to be around those guys. So that's the big thing. I always tell people, like, in a perfect world, you get together weekly and there's some sort of physical component.
Yeah.
Right? Do something hard together.
Yeah.
Some guys live in a different situation. Some guys are at a different age range. Some guys are super, super rural where the nearest house is 20 minutes away. Like, okay, so there's different circumstances. The number one thing is you got to get together every week.
Yeah.
So this last Sunday, I talk about my Fight Club group. It was like all the OGs. All the OGs were there. And then some random guy who I didn't know his name. But it was like, it was Jermaine, and it was Shelby, and it was Vinny, and it was Hanky, and it was Russ, and it was Rocky, and it was Jermaine. And it was like all the guys that have been there longer than I have even known these guys.
Yeah.
And do you know what the occasion was? It was Sunday.
That's it.
That was the occasion.
Yeah.
It was Sunday at 7 o'clock, and that's where we go Sundays at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And some guys have stretches where they can't come for whatever reason. Some guys are real consistent. Some guys bebop in and out or whatever. That's the crew.
Yeah.
That if something goes wrong with me, with this house, with anything in my life, with Undaunted, with the business, whatever, they're there.
Yeah.
Right? My forging table guys, right?
They're
Who was
there.
there with me, Barry and Roman, in this backyard,
Yeah.
right? Out behind here. When they weren't asked to show up, they just showed up.
Yeah.
Right? You can lament all day long, guys, that you don't have fellas like that. But a couple of questions you have to ask yourself. One, why haven't you looked for guys like that yet? And two, are you a guy like that?
Yeah.
Are you going to answer your phone at 3 o'clock in the morning? Are you going to inconvenience yourself? Are you going to come, out of pocket with your own money or with your own time or with your own effort to be there for another man? Because if the answer is no, then you can kick rocks, buddy.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're not willing to be that for somebody else,
They're not going to be there for you.
they're not going to be there for you. And guess what? That's exactly what you deserve.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a whole lot of patience for guys that lament that and don't do anything about it. I'm tired of hearing guys, I lament the fact that I'm overweight. Freaking kick it into gear, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you know exactly what to do. You have a supercomputer in your pocket. Ask ChatGPT, how can I not be so fat and worthless? And guess what? It'll tell you. It'll tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Same thing. I just wish I was closer to God. Well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you going to church? Are you in a local body of believers? Are you doing Bible study on your own or with a group of people? Are you praying at all? No. Okay, well, there, I just gave you your laundry list of things that you need to work at and the things that you need to do starting, 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we love to complicate things. We love to lament, but at some point we do have to get after it. But there, I did my own like little false ending to this podcast, but you got me all fired up and launched in. So I will do my outro again. And if you want to say something else, I don't care. I got nothing but time. But that is all for me. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, sir. That was great. I appreciate you ending it that way. That's important, and being intentional with those things, being the guy that you want somebody to be there for you is absolutely critical for that. For when you need it.
Yeah. Let's live like Jon.
Live like Jon.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.